You're listening to the New Jersey Real Estate Investor Podcast. We talk about all topics related to being a real estate investor in the Garden State, based on our experiences with buying, selling, managing, and building rentals. So together, we can all be better investors. Now, here is your host, Pete Tverdov.
Welcome back to the New Jersey Real Estate Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Pete Tverdov. We got Andrew Spina back with me after a nice parental leave off. He just had his second kid. Congrats to you, by the way.
Thank you, Pete. Good to be back. Glad I wasn't replaced.
Yeah, never. So anyway, we want to talk today about student housing, and the title of this show is "So You Want to Own Student Housing." This is what we are most known for here at Tverdov Housing. We manage a little over 100 rental properties in the New Brunswick, Piscataway area for Rutgers students. And I was actually thinking about it before starting the show. We've probably managed in the neighborhood of maybe 4,000 Rutgers students since we've been in business.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like half of the basketball arena. Right? Like,
Sure. Yeah.
when you think about it. So, if you own student housing, if you're thinking about owning student housing, especially in New Jersey, but this really would apply to anywhere in the country, you definitely want to sharpen your pencils and take some notes here, because we are going to give you an enormous amount of information. And when the show is over, you're either going to really want to do this, or you're going to say, hell no, I will invest in some other asset class. So, yeah, man. And the irony is we're taping this show, and by the time this gets released, we're going to be in the thick of it. So like I told you guys, we manage 100 student rentals. We have, this year it's actually quote unquote easier. We have about 55 or 57 student rental units to turn over in a 2-week time period.
Yeah.
The most we ever had to do you remember?
I think it was like close to 70.
It was 77.
Oh, wow.
That was a tough year.
Yeah. That's when I started drinking.
Yeah. That was a tough year. So usually we do 60-ish. So anyway, by the time the show airs, we're going to be in it, man. So when we're turning the student rentals, that's tough. And even if you own a couple, it's tough. But we do it with volume, and we do a really good job of it. Somehow each year we get through it, and I feel like each year it kind of gets easier.
It's been getting progressively easier each year. We're just getting better at it.
I thought you were going to say progressively worse.
No. It's getting better.
Yeah, no, I agree. So anyway, so we're going to dive right into it. So if, Andrew, I guess I'll bring this question up to you first. So if I want to own student housing, or like if I'm thinking about student housing, what are some of the benefits that you could share with the audience?
Some of the benefits are you're more or less going to always get your rent, because the rent payments are backed by mom and dad. So I can't think of any student housing that we have had to bring to eviction. I don't think we've ever had to. Maybe there's been some discrepancies along the way.
That's true. I don't know if this may have even preceded you, but I think it did. Like there's another guy helping me with management, and like it was a girl student, like she wasn't paying. And I was like, dude, like tell the dad, like we're going to evict his daughter if she doesn't pay. And the dad goes, good, evict her. Yeah. We're like, whoa. Great. And then she wound up paying anyway, moving out.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Yeah, the rent's kind of guaranteed by mom and dad. Another good thing that I always liked about student housing is even if you get a problematic tenant or a bad tenant group, there's like a finite length of time they're going to be in your property, because they're going to graduate eventually. Whereas if you get a bad group of tenants in a non-student rental, you might have them for, 5-10 years.
Yeah, that's true. Like, even if they're a pain in the rear end, like they're gone in 12 months.
They're gone. Yeah.
That's a good point. Another benefit I would add to owning student rentals is, like, even if you're dealing with rent control, like they don't stay long.
Right.
It's like, so more to your point, they're gone in like a year, maybe 2 years, like if they renew. Occasionally we get a group that stays 3 years. That's like, a golden group. But like that's usually not the case. But you're going to have rental increases every single year anyway.
Right. Even when they're at their worst, they're usually not that bad, because they're young. Their threshold, their tolerance level is usually, this cuts both ways, because you get some students that are used to living in the dorms, they're used to living at mom and dad's house, but younger people can generally tolerate a little bit more when it comes to the condition of the property, if it's not perfect.
You think so?
I think some of them do, because listen, they're partying. They're going to class, they're partying, like they can put up with crap. That's, again, it cuts both ways. That's not always the case, but they're willing to tolerate like maybe a subpar property if that's what you have and you're working on trying to fix it up. Like they're not too concerned with the roof line. They're not too concerned with the gutters being crimpled. Like they want a place to lay their head. It's a locker room. They're going to class, they're going to the dining hall, they're going to the football game, they're partying. So that's I think an added benefit.
One other benefit I would say it's the strongest benefit is the rent that you could charge is basically pinned to the tuition that the school charges. And the tuition that the school charges is pinned to the federal government backing student loans. So like if you've looked at any chart, like inflation the last 20 or 30 years for college tuition is like astronomical. It's like double healthcare, which is astronomical.
Yeah.
So I'm probably exaggerating this, but like over the last 30 years, it's like 300, 400, 500%, something stupid like that. So for me, like I own student rentals. So people out there who are like, college should be free. I'm like, good, go make college free. I'll make more money than ever, because if a college is free, then like no one has any concept of what tuition costs anymore. Like think of when you were in school and I was in school, and like I'll give you guys a good example, because like me and Andrew both went to Rutgers. I think I paid like $400 for a double.
Yeah, I always paid like $300 to $400 for a room.
Yeah. Now this was almost 20 years ago now, right? So this was 20 years ago. I paid $400 for a double. A double today is probably a cheap double.
Double that price?
No, it's probably like 600-ish. So that's a 50% increase in 20 years, I guess.
Yeah.
Which maybe that's not so bad, but like a single now is like easily like $1,000, $1,200 for a nice place.
Yeah.
When I was in school, a single was like $500, $525.
Yeah. I remember like $550 for a single, and I was like, whoa, slow down. Like,
yeah,
like $375 I'm going to pay.
Yeah.
And you're living with your friends.
But that's my point. That's the benefit. So like you're very well hedged with inflation, and you're really pinned to that school. Now, like if you own student rentals in New Brunswick, like Rutgers has 50,000 plus students.
Yep.
If you own, I mean, there's other colleges in New Jersey, obviously, right? So like if you're doing student rentals around around FDU or something, that's a very small private school. Like that might be a little riskier to me.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk more on later. So anyway, so these are some of the benefits, right? It's not all good though, guys. There are some drawbacks, which do you want to go first with that?
Yeah, well, I do want to say one other benefit would be, especially a town like New Brunswick with a massive state university, you have the markets guaranteed. There's, you know what I mean? They're churning out these graduates every year. There's always an incoming class of students. So it's not like you're going to be struggling to fill a vacancy. Unless, maybe the numbers don't add up, the property's not in the right location, but more or less, you're going to have butts for the seats.
Well, yeah, and I would say that for TCNJ, for Stockton, for Stevens, at Rutgers Newark, Seton Hall, wherever those off-campus housing locations are.
Yeah.
So drawbacks. Let's talk about drawbacks.
Drawbacks. Okay, right off the rip, you need to really sometimes manage the expectations, because like I said previously, some of these tenants, it's their first time living outside of their parents' house and or outside of a residence hall. So this is their kind of first quote unquote real world living situation. So to them, they may expect to be catered to a little bit. You know what I mean? They may
just a little bit.
Yeah, they may expect you to come and change their light bulb, to clean their floor.
We don't change their light bulb, by the way, and neither should you listening.
Yes, you need to put hard and fast rules down. But I mean, it's not to say they're bad tenants or bad kids, but they're young, they're naive, they're on their own for the first time, so they kind of treat you as a property management company and as a property manager like they would their RA in the dormitory. I mean, they will come to you on occasion with personal disputes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Things that are outside of your control, where as a management company, you have to assess what they're saying and tell them that we do not handle that.
Well, even the mom and pop landlord listening, like you shouldn't get sucked into roommate drama that happens, which like I've had to deal with just like completely asinine things
Yeah.
like when I was first starting, and like now we're like we're not.
Yeah.
This is your problem, not ours. Like,
I got a parking ticket. You need to pay for it. Like, no, sorry.
That's. So one drawback I would say is the parents.
Yeah.
And I say that because they have done such a piss poor job of parenting this generation. I sound like such an old man right now, but I'm not the only one who says this. Like, you talk to any student housing operator and anyone listening right now, they are nodding their head with me.
Oh, yeah.
You got to stop snow plowing and helicopter parenting your kid. It's my favorite. You probably already know what I'm going to say, is when mommy calls us.
Yeah.
Jonathan is a senior, right? Which last time I checked, if you're a senior, that means in 12 months, you're supposed to have a job in the real world. Jonathan is a senior and blah, 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 blah. This is ridiculous. The heat's not working. The air conditioning's not on. You know, there's spiders in the basement. I'm looking for housing for him. Please call me back.
Yeah.
That's not in any way, shape, or form acceptable.
No.
And honestly, we got away from parent co-signers because like we don't want to talk to the parents. Now, like when they call, like we'll give them like a courtesy call, like, or sometimes,
yeah,
you know, if they're polite, and just be, you know, like, look, this is how it is, but we're not talking to you again. Like, we're talking to the student on the lease. Well, I pay the rent. I don't care who pays the rent. They are on the lease, not you.
Yeah.
They could vote. They could join the military and shoot a rifle. They can't talk to the big bad landlord.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
And I remember last year, this time we had a mom come in with her son who was 21. And the son was standing there in our office looking at the floor, and the mom did all the talking. You know, she had a little bit of an attitude. I don't remember the details, but when they left, and we left very amicable, I felt sorry for this kid.
I think I vaguely remember that.
Yeah.
But, dude, we could talk all day about that stuff. But yeah, so like that's one of the drawbacks, because you'll get parents who are like a bull in a china shop, and they've bullied their way through their kids' K through 12 education. But what's funny is like they come up with us, and we're like, it's like a steel wall. Like, no.
Yeah. I remember one occasion, like 2 or 3 years ago, you were on the phone with some parents, and I think you literally said, like, we're gonna make a man out of him. Like, you know, like
dude, I actually
we're gonna make him an adult.
Yeah, no, you know, and I'm not this deep in the weeds anymore, but in the past, like I had parents actually thank me. They're like, you know, you're right. Like I had to let go. It was hard for me. This was my first kid in college. And I was like, I get it, but like,
it's your baby girl.
I was like, yeah, but like, did your mommy and daddy talk to your landlord in college?
My parents didn't even know where I lived.
No, I'm talking like, you know, this is what I would say to any parent. I'm like, so anyway, that's one of the annoying drawbacks. One of the other things is the students don't read anything, so they don't read the lease, you know, and then they act stunned with, you know, when they have to move out, or you know, when they have to move in. You'll get long walls of text message, very like 4 paragraphs about like something that's just silly, you know.
Yeah,
they don't like talking on the phone. The other drawback is depending on the size of the house. Like if you have a party house, like those turns get tired after a while, because the kids are going to pay, like Andrew said. And then they just beat the house to hell. Yeah. And then they move out, and there's furniture everywhere. There's like dirt smeared on the walls. The floors are covered in dirt.
Yeah.
You know, there's Solo cups everywhere. Yeah. There's like sticky floors in the basement from beer. And by the way, this doesn't mean like you haven't had eyes on the property. Like I had one of these party houses many years ago, and I would do monthly inspections. And then I stopped doing them because like I like after a while you get sick and tired of like, guys, you need to clean. You need to clean. I have the after a while, it's like, forget it. I'm just going to take it from their deposit. Move out. You know, like we used to have an owner who I personally parted ways with because they just weren't a good fit for us. But like they were irate that like the tenants threw a party, and you know the grass in the backyard is going to be destroyed. Like I know. Yeah, you have to understand. We'll take it from their deposit. You have to understand what you have. You know, like what do you want us to do right now? Like plant new grass so they could stomp on it? Yeah. Like we'll take it from their deposit. That's why you need professionals, because they're hardened to all of that. Well, yeah, and that's why they understand what's coming. I'm not saying to be lax. You cannot be lax, but like actually, you need to be very firm with the students. I would argue, like our lease is very, very firm, because if you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. So you don't say like, you know, if you want to have a few people over, that's okay. A few people, there'll be 300 people in that backyard. Right.
But you're not going to catch everything.
No,
they're going to party. They're going to
even the good ones.
Yeah, I mean, we all remember being 20 years
exactly,
old.
Right. Like we had people over sometimes. Like we had a couple quote unquote like very small parties, but we broke a toilet, we broke a window, not on purpose. Like literally, I remember like vividly, like we were screwing around with one of my teammates, just like kind of like wrestling, and like we knocked him into a single pane wood window, which shattered. And then we broke a toilet because everyone in the house was 250, 300 pounds. And we just, literally like broke it.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that as a landlord, and you have to be okay with that.
And you can't waste your time with all the minutia of like, oh, well, there's more trash outside. I mean, obviously you don't want to incur tickets, but like you have to sort of accept a certain level of, degradation. And then you come in and say, okay, you're paying for all of this. We're going to get it back up for the next group coming in.
You have to be very numb to it is what I would say. And that's like we are. Like dude, honestly, we don't get it that much anymore, but we're probably going to have some irate parent coming in about something. And you guys did a terrible job. And this house is disgusting and blah, 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 blah. Which, mind you guys, like we're not leaving a house disgusting.
No. The houses are 130 years old. Right. It's never going to get 100% clean. I mean, we've hired cleaning services, and I used to live in old houses and old apartment buildings. You can get on your hands and knees and scrub, and you'll still have like a little residual like dirt and dust. Yeah. It's in the walls. It's in the, the framing. It is what it is. You know?
So, but that's okay. So I thought maybe we could talk about a couple of quick stories here as it relates to student rentals. So we'll try to be quick here because otherwise we're going to talk about this for an hour itself. So I guess the first quick one that I will talk about is this was like the first year I was in business. Had a tenant, they moved out. We came in to do the work, and the one wall was spackled horribly, right? And thank God, even back then, like I did things right. I'm like, all right, we got to cut this sheetrock out and like just put a new piece of sheetrock and then spackle and paint it, right? Because other people would have been like, oh, just skim coat it, it'll be fine. Well, didn't you guys know this tenant wasn't too happy that they were moving out? They emptied their entire refrigerator, put it in the wall, and then spackled it closed. And they did not get away with it only because their spackle job was that bad. Can you imagine if they did a good spackle job?
I mean, it's impressive. I kind of have to give it to that guy.
Maybe he was related to you then.
As my uncle, John Stupid. No, I mean we can look back at and laugh now, but that's severe.
Yeah, that's that one has been burned into my mind. So, what's one that you have?
So, I have a couple. One, I remember there was a young group, very nice young girls that lived in a rental, and I happened to sort of share a space with them on the first floor a little bit. So, I took it upon myself for a year, maybe 2 years. I handled all the trash. I handled all the recycling. I always told them, like, listen, I'll take the trash cans to and from. Like, I'll clean up. Just all you got to do is tie your bag up, put it in the can. And it came to move out, and like most of these kids experience, what happens during move out? They panic.
Yeah.
Because like Pete said,
everyone abandons ship.
They don't know when the lease expires. Like, oh, I thought I had till Wednesday. I thought I had till Saturday. So they were panicking, and in their last hours at the property, they decided to basically dump the entire contents of their kitchen cabinets loose, unbagged, into the trash cans. So when I went to the backyard to do the trash, as I did, 3-4 times a week, there was just nothing but like loose food, rotting food, like broken spice jars. Like it would have taken me 4 hours to clean up. And that's when I said that, no, they've been, and they were good tenants, but I was like, I'm not eating this crap sandwich. I called them up. I said, listen, I don't mind taking care of all this, but you need to come back here and clean all of this up. And they did. But I was like hurt because, and that kind of happens with student rentals. And what we've learned over the years is, I mean, you want to be considerate, professional, you want to provide a good experience, but it's always when you go out of your way, when you bend over for someone, they end up stabbing you in the back. They end up spitting in your face.
No, they forget all about it.
They forget all about the generosity you've shown them.
We used to allow people to move in early.
Yeah.
Right? And we would kill ourselves to get this apartment ready early. And then when they would move out, they'd be arguing with us over like the most asinine deposit deductions, or they would be like, this place was filthy when we moved in. And me and Andrew are looking at each other like, holy crap, we let you move in a week early.
Yeah.
Like you wanted to move in early. We let you move in early. The place was not filthy.
And maybe they'll complain about something that is there, but then you're like, well, why didn't you tell me this 6 months ago. You're saying you've had to live with this for 9 months. Why didn't you tell me 8 months ago? I would have fixed this.
Yeah. Another one I vividly remember, we probably got like a foot of snow, and this girl was like frantically calling me, which like I mean, I don't answer the phone to this day because I'm so busy, but like rule of thumb, like as a property manager, you really shouldn't be answering the phone. Like they could text you or email you.
Yeah. And if they don't leave a voicemail,
then we don't call them back.
It's not an emergency.
Yeah. So anyway, like frantically calling, then the parents calling, like, there's a foot of snow on the ground. The driveway has not been shoveled. Call me back immediately. This is unacceptable. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, helicopter dad. Mind you, our lease says like we shovel the sidewalks, the steps, right? Like we don't shovel the driveway.
Yeah,
and this genius of a student didn't park near the edge of the driveway when they got a foot of snow. They parked like 50 feet back.
Mm-hmm.
So they thought that like I was going there like at 9 o'clock at night to shovel a foot of snow in their driveway.
Yeah.
And like, I was like, no, we're not doing that. And so as a landlord, you have to learn to like stand your ground, so to speak, because people will guilt trip the hell out of you. Mm-hmm. I'm paying you rent. My daughter needs to get to work. You can't even, well, excuse me, sir. First of all, why isn't your daughter talking to me? Well, you wouldn't, blah, 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 blah. Like, okay, well, yeah, I already gave your daughter this answer. I'll give you the same answer respectfully. Like, we don't do that. It's written in our lease. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Go rent a snowblower.
Mm-hmm.
You know, go.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
even if you're a mom and pop or a mid-size or a large size, you cannot, you can't go out of your way like that. It's unmanageable. You have to, certain things you have to outline is this is tenant responsible, this is owner responsible, and you have to abide by that.
Well, that's why you have a lease to begin with.
And you have to have a good lease, because otherwise you'll go crazy. Even if you have 1 or 2 properties and you're like, you know, I'm going to do it myself. I don't need a management company. Great. Like you have to stick to those lines because it'll kill you. It will kill you. I mean, like, look at my beard. Look at all these grays. You know,
what's another one you have?
Another one I had is I have two more. One was, once again, a group of young ladies. We have a lot of problematic histories with the female tenants. I don't know, like the guys are gross, but the
guys never throw like a hissy fit.
Yeah,
they're just like, yeah, we trashed the place. You're right.
I mean, sometimes you get the guys that are problematic, but there was a house, group of girls. Very nice. They started reporting that they had like a pest issue, right? And what's our policy on like pest control?
If it's tenant caused, like they're going to be the ones paying for it. Most of the time
it is, right? So like, and we understand like, okay, you saw a cockroach. That's part and parcel of living in any city. I don't care where you are. But these particular girls were complaining incessantly about spiders in the house. So my first instinct is like, all right, well, listen, ladies, it's a spider. Like, get your boyfriend to go get a tissue and like clean it. But they would not drop it. They were submitting work orders weekly. They were calling. They were having their parents intervene.
That's so. Can you imagine for a second, like your son or if my daughters were like, Dad, there's spiders in our apartment and the landlord won't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, then go hire an exterminator and pay for it.
They're like, there's spiders in the basement. Like, really?
Yeah, there's spiders in every basement.
There's spiders in my
United States,
basement
in the world.
But anyway, because we're very good at customer service, this would not be quelled by any other means of a sit down. And these girls wanted a sit down. It was like a mafia thing. Like, we want to sit down. They came in, not 1, not 2, I think 4 of them.
I remember this. There's like the whole group.
The whole group, 4 girls come in and they want to meet with us. So I sat down, we talked to them. I kind of managed their expectations. And most customer service and most complaints, it's all about they want to be heard.
Yeah, that's true.
They kind of want you to listen to them for a second. So we heard them out. I think we came to a compromise where we even actually, sidebar, we even like called the pest control company and they were like, yeah, like we can treat, but like we can't guarantee it's gonna work.
Doesn't.
It's spiders, you know. Yeah. So we came to some accommodation where I think the owner paid half of the bill. They paid half of the bill, and it didn't even fix it. But you know what? That ended it because they had the meeting.
Dude, you just reminded me of another one that wasn't even in my notes. This was a roach issue where a group of girls moved out and a new group moved in, and there was roaches, which happens sometimes, right? With student rentals, because the kids live like pigs.
And it's a city.
Guys are girls, but the kids, I understand that, but like the kids, the students live like pigs. So a new group moves in, and all of a sudden, like, hey, we have roaches. You didn't treat this. But I was like, okay, well, like the roaches weren't waving to us when we were doing the move-in. Like it's hard to find that stuff unless it's like everywhere.
Yeah.
So anyway, it got so bad. Like one of the girls, mind you, we treated right away, but one of the girls want to break the lease. And then her dad was like, I spoke to an attorney. This is a constructive eviction. Like, none of us should be paying rent and none of us need to live here. I was like, a constructive eviction? Basically,
I never heard of that.
What that basically means is like the house is like uninhabitable.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Like if there's no furnace, the furnace doesn't work. Like there's a hole in the roof, right? I was like, dude, because there's some roaches in that. I was like, do me a favor, like take your kid and GTFO, which they did, by the way. They found a new tenant. But another roach one, we just picked up a property management client, student rentals, like drops his portfolio on my lap, and the group's moving in like tomorrow. So I'm like, okay, well, let's start the process. So like I go to do move-in photos, and as I'm doing move-in photos, I see roaches, and I was like, oh crap, right? And then I investigate. I'm like, man, they're like, okay. So like I immediately call exterminator, and the parents and the students were moving in from like upstate New York. I let them know, like, I don't know, within like by the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day, like they're all there. And the one mom, mind you, these guys were on the football team, right? And the mommy is talking for everyone and ripping me to pieces as if like I owned the house, as if I knew about this. And I just ate a humongous, as you would say, crap sandwich.
Yeah.
Okay. Smiles on my face. And she was like, Pete, the customer's always right. You're going to put us in a hotel. It's like, well, ma'am, the customer's not always right.
Yeah.
I was like, we're not putting you in a hotel. I was like, like you could find a friend's house to sleep with. Like we're going to treat this.
Yeah.
And the other mom stepped in after, and then afterwards she pulled me aside. She's like, you handled that really well. I'm in your line of work. Like, I think you're doing all the right things. Like we're going to do this, this, and this. I was like, yeah, you're right. Like we got to replace the dishwasher. We got to replace the fridge. We got to replace the stove. We just treated today. We're going to treat next week, and we're going to keep treating until this problem's gone.
Yeah.
What's
the other thing to keep in mind is that a lot of it, we always say this, we're always astonished by how many of these students and student rentals are actually attorneys. We don't know this, but they have a law degree.
Yeah, that's the other thing. They become Google attorneys.
They'll threaten you with
I remember
action
this, man. So many are coming to mind now. I remember another one.
Now it's coming.
We like to take marketing photos of a vacant apartment. So even like in 2 weeks, like I'm going to do that because we still have some where it's like old kids furniture. It looks better. It's easier to market, just as a sidebar. So anyway, we took like move-in photos, or we took marketing photos, and this kid emails us. This was years ago. This kid like emails us that he was worried about like anti-Semitism.
What?
Yeah, because like I guess he had like a flag of like Israel or something in his room, and according to this law, like it's against the law to take a picture without his permission. And like, so I see the screenshot, dude. It was a blog article written in Toronto. I was like, dude. I was like, okay, look, we're gonna take the pictures down, but I didn't even say that. But I'm like, dude, like, you think I'm stupid?
Oh, because there was a flag in the marketing.
Yeah,
photo.
and like he was worried, like he was gonna be like attacked or something.
He'd be targeted.
Yeah.
You think too much of yourself.
And dude, this wasn't like a year ago when they were having like Free Palestine rallies. This was like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're diving off topic here, but like, and then man, guys, I've been talking about this all day.
We'll have another.
Here's another juicy one.
Part 1 of 2.
And this happens all the time with students as well. And Andrew will agree. Like all of a sudden, they need to break their lease, or they don't like their roommate. They want to do a lease assignment, or a sublease, which we'll let them
maybe
do.
Transfer. I transfer.
Yeah. Everyone. Oh my god, dude, the stories are pouring out of my head.
All right,
now.
you gotta rein them back.
I don't know, dude. I don't know. You guys are gonna love this listening to this. So, oh man, I got another one about a transfer. Oh my god, I don't know which one to talk about now. So this girl's
I got more too.
You can see. So, we're gonna have fun with this. This girl's doing a lease assignment, and she's like, "Hey, I'm moving to San Francisco. I need like no problem. Like you gotta find a replacement. Sure, no problem." She finds a replacement, then she doesn't find a replacement. Then she's staying, then she's not staying. This goes on for like a couple weeks. And finally, I was like, "Are you staying or are you not staying?" Okay, no, I'm good. I'm good. Like I'm going to San Francisco. I'm leaving. Okay, cool. I wish you a lot of luck. She found a replacement. We get a new property management client. 2 months later. The same guy with the roach problem. He owned a couple of properties. So like, I'm going through each new property to take like photos of just documenting what the property looks like. So I go into this one house to take photos. The girl who said she was moving to San Francisco was living in that house.
What?
She made the whole thing up because she just wanted to get out of her lease.
Yeah.
And then I had one where, and this happens too, guys. And those of you who are Korean will nod your head. In South Korea, if you're a citizen, apparently you have to serve in the military.
Okay.
And this kid was a student renting one of our apartments, and he like either his parents moved back to South Korea or something like that. But whatever it did, it triggered. And he showed me the paperwork. He's like, Pete, I got drafted into the military in South Korea. He's like, I got to leave in 2 weeks.
We never saw him again.
That never saw him again, honestly. Yeah. Oh my God. You got any others? I could keep talking about this.
I remember right around like maybe during or post COVID, we had that one couple. It was a kind of what people call like a Bernie Sanders couple living at 23 Dick Street, and we had the inspector. I think a housing or a fire inspector.
Oh, I forgot all about that.
And I went there with him.
What a bunch of lunatics.
And they, short of assaulting this inspector, they came as close as you could come. They were verbally harassing him, all because
I have cornmeal.
Yeah, some made up illness. But and keep in mind, what was the reason we were doing like a required fire inspection or housing inspection just to make sure they were safe? And they were so unhinged. They were cussing, screaming obscenities at this inspector, at me. And the inspector took it with grace. You know, like we got out of there. I don't even remember all the details, but I remember leaving the property, talking to the fire inspector and just saying, hey, I'm really sorry about that.
I remember him calling me up and because
Victor.
like I shouldn't say they had like they had something in the stairwell.
Yeah, they were blocking.
Yeah, which like is like a $2,000 fine. And the way they treated him, he was like, "Do you want me to fine them?" He's like, "I'll write up a fine right now." I was like, "No." I was like, "You know what? Just don't worry." Like dude, it's a big time fine.
Yeah, the hypocrisy too, because this inspector is like person of color, and these tenants are Caucasian, and they are just taking a dump on this guy. But as we're leaving the property, they open up the windows on the second floor and start screaming at us.
I remember you telling me
it was insane. It was behavior of lunatics. I mean, no one acts that way. You know, my last story that I do recall was, I think this was 2022, 2023. We had an irate parent come in the office. This was during key day. So 2 weeks post move out, we spend those 2 weeks, we get the units ready, clean, whatever we have to do. And we have a designated day when the new lease starts. Tenants pick up key copies. Key day. This was key day. Parents come in, pick up keys with their son, small group. They come back maybe 90 minutes later, and the mom is red hot, screaming at us.
Is this the one where I yelled at you?
Yes. Saying the unit is not acceptable.
Yeah.
All these things are wrong. The carpets are destroyed. And the big one she throws out is there is dog feces by the back door on the porch, and Pete steps in as, you know, our supervisor. Sometimes things have to get escalated to Pete. Pete's the hammer that comes down, and he ends it right there. So Pete hears this. He asks to speak to me outside. I'm like, and I'm working my butt off.
Yeah, I remember
killing myself. He brings me outside, and you proceed to chew into me. You're saying like, I should know better, that this is unacceptable. What the hell you're doing? I'm doing a bad job. Like, and so you got to go over there right now and clean it up or figure out what's going on. So I'm like, okay, all right. So I'm feeling kind of down and out. I go over there. I'm like, man, what the heck is wrong with me? Like, how did I miss this? Like dog feces? Like that's a justifiable anger, you know? And I go over there, and it's a bunch of leaves on the back porch
that she thought looked like
dog crap. And I was like, Pete, guess what?
Yep.
You feel bad about that?
You know,
it's a stressful time. I don't hold it against you.
No, I'm not perfect. We could, dude. I have more stories to tell. I think we need to do a podcast. Just some
maybe
stories.
We'll do one after move outs.
Oh my god!
To let everyone know how it went this year.
Yeah. So anyway, I will say with the student rentals, there's no shortage of fun. You will have a lot of fun. So a lot of laughs, and in the moment, it's like, oh, I don't want to do this, and so that's why we manage 100 of them, because there's a lot of people who don't want to do it. They like the cash flow component of it, but they don't like dealing with all the stuff.
The immaturity.
So quickly, I want to talk about the areas in New Jersey to do student housing. If you're still interested, if you haven't shut the podcast off and discussed yet,
I think it's the way to go. I think it's the way to go.
Yeah, like, I'm a big fan.
It's good.
Yeah, I mean, I invest in a bunch of student rentals myself. Big fan. So areas in New Jersey to do student housing. The first one, obviously, New Brunswick, right by Rutgers University. You do get a little bit of students in Piscataway. You know, Highland Park is, you know, those are surrounding towns, mostly like grad students. The next one would be Ewing for TCNJ.
Yeah.
We only manage student rentals in New Brunswick, by the way. We can't do it everywhere. That's impossible for us. But I have spoken to investors who invest in Ewing. Very similar model.
Yeah. It's a state school, right?
TCNJ? I don't know.
But yeah, that's a good one.
But yeah, so Ewing's a good one. Seton Hall, you got West Orange and Bloomfield. There's a lot smaller sections of what you would call student housing, but they do exist. I have, heard of student housing like around Kane College and Union, like the Union Elizabeth area.
Okay.
There's a little bit of student housing like now you're getting to the weeds, like Newark, Hoboken, Jersey City, around like Stevens, Rutgers, Newark.
Yeah.
And then you could think of student housing. Actually, I think Ryder also is by Ewing. So you got like two schools to work out there. And then like if you think of like real far south, you got Rowan.
That's my
Stockton.
neck of the woods. Yeah.
Glassboro. Anything south of I-95, we don't really care about on this show.
Yeah.
I'm joking. But yeah, anyway, so those are a lot of different areas where you can invest in student housing. I will say every market's different though. So like what works at Rutgers doesn't work at Stockton. What works at Stockton doesn't work at Temple. What works at Temple doesn't work at, a SUNY school. Or
would you say like proximity is the key here for investing in student rentals? Because you can't have a great property that's X number of minutes away from campus, right? Isn't there kind of like tied to location a little bit?
You must have been reading my notes here because the last thing we're going to talk about today is how to be successful with the student rentals. And location is definitely very, very important. It's not the only thing, but it makes it a hell of a lot easier, right? Yeah. So like the closer you are to the campus, the better. And I will say you do have to become a subject matter expert if you want to specifically own student rentals and rent to students. You really need to know where they're living. Because like take New Brunswick, for example. Like because I sell a lot of real estate in New Brunswick, guys, and I don't do this, but I see listings all the time like 10 minutes away from Rutgers University. And like people call me up like, will I be able to rent this to students? I'm like, hell no, you're not renting this to students.
Not the right neighborhood. Yeah.
So like you have to know the neighborhoods. And the same would go for Seton Hall. The same would go for Ryder, for TC&J, for Stevens, for all these different schools.
Yeah.
Montclair State.
You got to know the lay of the land.
Absolutely. So location is very important. The second one I would say, which goes without saying, is the condition of the property. Because if it's in good shape, people, aka parents, are gonna pay up for it. Or the students who are international, right? And they have the money, like they will pay up to live in a nice, safe, new, clean, well lit, fire sprinklered place. Another way to be successful, and feel free to jump in here. What we suggest to all of our clients, and this is how we do it, guys. All the students are on one lease.
Oh, yeah.
They are all jointly and severally liable for rent. Now, why would you do that? You do that because when Andrew and Pete get into an argument and Pete wants to move out of the apartment, you as a landlord say, you don't literally say this, but in your head, you're like, I don't care. You guys are jointly and severally liable for the entire rent amount. So Andrew, figure it out. Find another roommate, pay it yourself, go sue Pete. I don't care, but like you're giving me my $1,500, $2,000 for that, for that apartment. So that goes without saying that you have to do that. Sometimes we inherit new properties where it's like rented by the room, or like we have we have two of those this year.
I did an inspection today. It was rented by the room.
Which it's a headache. And since they're all on one lease, rent is submitted in how many payments out there, guys? One payment. I don't care if there's 5 kids, 7 kids on the lease. You collect rent in one payment, because if you don't, now you're chasing Shane for his portion of the rent. Right. And like it muddies up the waters. And we can't do that. Of course you can do it. This is what you tell them, guys. So listen to this and write this down. You say, listen, this is how our groups do it. First of all, there's a group leader, right?
Yes.
Called a house mom or
house
a
manager.
captain, a house manager. The last week of every month, everyone Venmos, Zells, gives a check cash to the house manager. The house manager puts that money in their checking account. The money clears, and on the first of the month, they submit rent. That's all you got to do. Every other group does it. Yeah, but we're submitting $5,000. That's a lot of money. Like, no, we've had groups do it for $8,000, $10,000. By the way, that's what frats do. That's what sororities do.
We have a group of 10 or 11, maybe 10 tenants. They submit one payment.
Yeah,
there's 10 guys.
Exactly. So and as long as you're firm with that, like they'll understand that, and that language should be in your lease.
Yes.
Right. So those are some very easy ones right off the rip. I don't know if you have anything else about like being successful with the student rentals.
Having a good lease and sticking to it. Like you need to have a good lease. Like Pete said, everyone's jointly liable. You're accepting one payment. Even if it's a tenant group of 10 or 4, like we're going to communicate with Kristen. Okay, that's who we're talking to. Because it's not because you're trying to disregard people. You can't manage it in a professional, appropriate way if you're chasing people for $300 in their rent. If you're talking to 3 different kids,
and honestly, it reminds me of like, I guess, how you train like a dog.
Yeah,
because like Kristen's the group lead, but then Brianna keeps texting me.
Right,
like Brianna, talk to Kristen.
Yeah.
And have Kristen text me. Well, blah, 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 blah. Well, Kristen's not responsive. Like, okay, then you girls talk and figure out who the new group head is. But I don't need the 5 of you telling me that the tub spout is leaking water. I just need one of you.
Right. You don't want to be a landlord babysitter, right? So you have to kind of break them like a dog a bit. Here's our lease. It's ironclad. Here's what we're doing. I'm not calling you back. You're not the house manager. I'm calling the house manager back. You want to be, respectful, but you also have to put them in their place a little bit. Have a good lease. I'll understand you're dealing with a certain level of immaturity because of the tenant class. They're young kids. I mean, and especially the generations coming up, like talk to any educator. These kids are just vacant in the eyes. They've been growing up on an iPad. That's a separate topic. And then I will say, and I always say this to our property managers, because it's a silver lining. In my experience, I may be dead wrong, but in the beginning, you have a new group of tenants that move in, whatever timeline that falls in. Usually the loudest people that you encounter end up chilling out and being some of the easier tenants.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Like the people that come in to complain that day one because they saw a cockroach, like, you handle that professionally. Those people end up being pretty good. It's the people that you don't hear from, and then all of a sudden something blows up out of nowhere because, I don't know. It's just they're passive aggressive.
I will say though, it's not all fire and brimstone. Like because we sound like very harsh on this podcast.
Yeah, well.
There is kindness, and you do need empathy, and we are fair. Like there's a fine line, but like at the end of the day,
and we were college kids. We rented.
Yeah,
so
that's my favorite part. So when people try to give me these, I'm like, just save it, please.
How many houses did you live in during?
2, and guess what? The first house I lived in wasn't ready for a week. So all my stuff was in my SUV, and I slept on my buddy's couch for a week.
Yeah,
I didn't threaten an attorney. I didn't throw a temper tantrum. I was like, okay.
Yeah. I lived in like 3 or 4 rentals as an undergrad.
Yeah,
so I know what it's like.
Yeah, so we've been in the shoes of these students. We really understand, and really anybody's been in the shoes of students if they've went to college and lived off campus anywhere, right? Yeah. So, but what I'm getting at is it's good to be fair, look, you guys have lived here for a year, rent's been paid, you guys haven't made a peep, fine, me as the owner, I'll pay for this small repair that even though you guys are a bunch of knuckleheads and broke something, fine. So there has to be a little bit of give and take.
Yeah, they're generally good kids. They got into college. They're not utterly, that doesn't say a lot.
I think you need a pulse now to get into college, honestly.
Well, they're not degenerate. You know what I mean? They were enough put together to get accepted to college. Okay. And, like you said, firm but fair.
Yeah, that in a nutshell is really how you can be successful with the student rentals. But for as much headaches as they could be, the cash flow is great, the appreciation's great. I think we have fun managing them for the most part.
We didn't talk about wear and tear. Expect your property to experience a higher level of wear and tear. It just comes with the territory. Am I wrong?
I would say it depends. It depends.
What's it depend on?
Well, if you have a 12-person house, that's going to get beat up.
Okay.
If you have a 2-family that's 3 bedrooms each and 3 people could live there, a lot less wear and tear. So if you have a huge backyard, a huge finished basement, that's a big open space, it's a party house.
It's going to get used, yeah.
Right. So and if you're fine owning that, we have a couple that we manage like that. The owners know, each year, 80% of the deposit's going to be gone.
Yeah.
Which is okay. You just have to understand that going in. I don't think they get beat up too bad.
I think at a higher rate than a non-student rental. Depends.
It depends, man. It really depends.
Yeah. It depends. Who you get in there, like you said, what are the aspects of the property?
Yeah.
Is it made for, how many houses do you see you're like, this is made for partying? Because it's just the way it's laid out?
Oh, yeah. Because I know, because when I'm showing clients, I'm like, yeah, this is a party basement.
Yeah.
Or my favorite is when I get to house tours, when I'm wearing my realtor hat and there's the beer pong table out there. And, and it's so funny that when people are so shocked by that, I'm like, what? It's a beer pong table.
Yeah.
You haven't seen a beer pong table on a home tour?
Yeah.
I see it all the time.
We see it every day. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm so used to it. But yeah, in a nutshell, man, it's a great asset class to invest in. There's headaches, yes, but we have a lot of fun with it. I think we do a really good job in the New Brunswick area and the community. We have tons of people that leave us positive reviews. Like we have people who rent places from us in the future. Like I don't know if I told you this. Like the one place up in
the kid, right?
Yeah,
he was an old tenant.
Yeah, we had somebody who like was one of our tenants like 4 years ago, and they were like trying to rent a place from us. Like, oh, I didn't know you guys also do management up here, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And then
I've had kids at restaurants be like, "Oh, I see your shirt. Like I used to rent 3 years ago."
So we do a good job. So we might sound a little harsh on this podcast, but you have to be like we're pretty firm, but we're like like you say, we're firm but fair. And you have to be. So yeah, I think it's a great asset class. I don't think New Brunswick's the only place you could do it and have success. Obviously, it's not the case. Anywhere in the United States, you can do this.
The Northeast especially. I mean, we are rich with colleges up here. New England, North Mid-Atlantic, New Jersey, like Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and Rutgers is like a party campus. Like the kids like to have fun, and now this is the best kept secret. You only have to worry about that house for maybe 7.5 months out of the year. They barely live there in the summer.
Oh, yes.
They're gone for winter break. Right? It's and after like May 10th, exams are over.
Yep.
Who the hell's hanging around after exams? They're either moving out, and they're not waiting until the end of the lease, most of them. Or if they're hanging around, it's because they have another place to move to. Then they move there, or they move their stuff home, and then they don't move back until like September.
That's most of the cases, yeah.
So I love summer in New Brunswick because I could park on the street. It's quiet. It's like they're not really there. So it's a great asset class in a nutshell. I love it. I personally own a couple student rentals. I own non-student rentals too. Both are great. So
it's our bread and butter, man.
Yeah, man. So that's what we're known for. And anyway, so I hope this was helpful, guys. If it was, or if you ever have any questions about this stuff, feel free to reach out to me. Email, social media, whatever it is, and we will catch you on the next episode. And the next time you and I have a podcast, the student rentals will be done.
Oh, should we do a part 2? How it went?
We could.
War stories.
We could. That's we'll probably have to do a podcast about that.
Well, let's get through this move-out season.
All right, guys. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for listening to the New Jersey Real Estate Investor Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Until next time.